All right. So a couple of days ago, the folks at Skylum who make the AI powered photo editing software Luminar Neo announced a new extension to the app called Panorama Stitching. And if it was just a matter of taking some photos and stitching them together, I don't know that I would necessarily cover it, but I've got to give the people at Skylum credit because they've reimagined different ways to use pano stitching, and I'm going to go over all of them right now. And in a few minutes, I'm also going to share with you a discount code. So if you want to either get Luminar Neo or pre-order the pano stitching extension, you can save 15%. That'll come in a few minutes. So with that, let's just jump right in. All right, so the first point that I want to make is that this is a beta build of Luminar Neo. So what does that mean? Well, the first thing is if you're using the production public release of Luminar Neo, you won't be able to install the Panorama Stitching Extension just yet. It was kind of pre-announced. It's available for pre-order. And if your plan comes with extensions, you should be able to get that once it's released. The other thing is that, as with any beta, there are things like some performance improvements that will still happen and also stability improvements. So when I show you the examples here, I might just cut out the actual processing time from them just so that we don't waste time. But I'll tell you how long it took. And if the performance is not where it should be, rest assured that that's being worked on actively. So I just want to bring that up again, that this is a beta build. All right, back to the app. So you can see here, this is the Panorama Stitching Extension. Extensions are these add-ons to Luminar Neo that most of them are AI powered and they focus on specific things. You can see the different ones over here, like HDR merge, focus stacking, upscaling. There's also a noise reduction extension. Basically, if you click on this extras button over here, you'll see all of the extensions available. If your subscription or your purchase includes extensions, you'll have this button here say install. If not, you have the option of purchasing the add-on and adding it to your kit for Luminar Neo. For me here, because this is the beta, you can see I've got the Panorama Stitching Extension here. When it's released, you will see this here too. And if it's part of your plan, you will be able to install it. All right, so the first kind of function of Panorama Stitching is what you would expect. It's taking several photos that you took with your camera or your phone, and by overlapping it as you pan across, it'll combine them. So you can see here, I took this last week with my Sony a7R V. So you know that when this is stitched, this is going to be a gigantic pano. And all I'm going to do is pan over so you can see that there's enough overlap here to get this basically full widescreen pano. Now, one of the things that I prefer to do here is there's generally one adjustment that I do if I have a raw file, and that's white balance. I don't typically do anything else to my pano. Same thing kind of with HDR. I don't edit anything except for white balance. And the reason why I do that is because currently in Luminar Neo, when the panoramic image is saved, it's saved as a TIFF file. Hopefully DNG support will come, at which case I'll feel more comfortable doing custom white balance after the fact. But for now, what I do is I open up just one image here. I go to edit, then I go to develop, and you can see because it's a raw file, it says develop raw. And then I'll go to color. And just like in any photo editing app, there is a dropper over here. I'll click on it and I'm going to balance off of somewhere that's kind of neutral right over there. It was kind of minimal. I wanted to do this just to show you how it's done. And then what I'll do is I'll go to catalog. I'll right click on that photo, then go to adjustments, select copy adjustments, and then I'll select the rest of the images here. Right click, go to adjustments, and then select paste adjustments. And that is going to paste that white balance value to all of these images. All right, so now that I've got the white balance done, this is how you do a basic pano stitch. You select the images that you want to stitch together, and then you drag them onto the extension over here. Now, before you click on start, first you can obviously see all of the images here. And then the other thing that you'll want to pay attention to is this little ellipse button. If you click on it, you have some options. So there are abilities to apply distortion correction to the image, devignetting if your lens suffers from hardware vignetting, and then also chromatic aberration reduction. So I'm not really worried about any of these things. That's why I have them deselected, but it's worth paying attention to these settings if your photos do suffer from any of these issues. So with that done, I'm gonna go ahead and click on Start. And that took about 8 seconds to process. Again, those were a bunch of full resolution Sony A7R5 RAW files. Here is the basic user interface. The first thing you'll want to notice is on the bottom left here, you have these different perspective modes. The first and default is spherical. Next is cylindrical, then Mercator, plane, and fisheye. And if you click on each of them, you'll see how the kind of overall perspective changes based on the mode you're in. And so for me, I'm just going to stick with the default spherical for now. And you basically have a few options here. The first thing you can do is click to zoom. Now, because this is such a huge resolution file, when you zoom in, it's really big, and you can't kind of see more of the image. It kind of zooms in at 100% view. So one of my feature requests, what I'm hoping to see is some sort of a zoom slider somewhere over here where you can control the zoom, because you basically can zoom in what I believe is a 100% view, or this, it's not even a fit to screen view. But here's why this is important, because you can actually control or correct the distortion, almost like a parallax effect. Watch, if I click and drag down, you see how the pano is kind of bowed out this way, and then same thing here. But what I can do is I can actually click and drag until I get pretty much a straight horizon and rectilinear lines. And so if I zoom in here, I can basically drag down until these lines, these vertical lines, look straight. And that's what I'm doing. I'm right around there's looking good. So now we should have a good, clean perspective. And so when you're done, what you'll do is you'll click on Stitch. This is going to bring you to the crop mode. So now you can control the actual composition, or what will be in your composition. And this is pretty straightforward. So for example, let's say you make a crop like this. If you want to return back to that maximum crop area, just click on this button and it'll reset it. I'm just going to go ahead here and adjust the composition accordingly, something like that. And when you're done, just click on crop. And so now that we're done with the composition, all you need to do is click on save. It'll process and it'll drop you back into the catalog view where you can start editing your pano. So here is the stitched pano. I can go ahead and drag this into the album over here and then click on it. And you can see here are the original panels and the stitched image. And so now you're obviously free to either apply a preset if you want, or you can use the manual editing control. So here, I actually like using the Accent AI slider under Enhance AI. This is actually making like 12 different adjustments simultaneously using one slider. And so you can kind of see how it's bringing out shadow detail, adding some more color vibrance, just making the image look good. And then if a sky is detected in the image, you'll be able to use the sky enhancer so you can bring out more detail in the sky here. And so, like I said, if this was the only feature for the Panorama Stitching Extension, I don't even know if I would do a video, because it is what it is. But there are some other additional features that I think are pretty cool and worth highlighting. So let me show you that right now. Now, super quickly, before we continue, I told you that I would show you how you can save 15% off of your order of Luminar Neo or any of your upgrades or extensions. To do that, just go to your checkout, click on whichever product suits your needs, and then on the checkout screen over here, all you have to do is click on enter promotional code and then type in the code Brian15. Super easy. Click apply, and that will take off 15% off your entire order. All right, let's get back to it. All right, so what I'm going to do is go to catalog here, and I'm going to go to a Jeep action sequence album that I created. Now, you might be wondering, why am I working with the video? And that's the cool thing about this. Typically, I think when we think of panos, we're thinking of taking individual images and stitching them together to create an ultra high resolution, wide aspect ratio pano. But here, this is a video that I took several years ago in southern Utah, and I was sitting in the passenger seat of my Jeep Wrangler that I miss so much because I have since sold it. And I was flying my drone. The drone was stationary, and the driver drove my Jeep through the frame. So it's pretty straightforward, nothing special. But here's the cool thing. Here's where the pano stitching extension starts to kind of veer off and offer different functionality than you normally would see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it onto the extension, just like we did with the images, except now I'm just doing one video. You'll also notice if you go to the options here, those 3 options that we had available for still images are grayed out because we are working with a video. So now I'm going to go ahead and click start. All right, so this is a pretty typical view of any video player. You've got your video screen, and then you've got your timeline, you've got a playhead, and you've got a start and end frame bumper. And so let me show you how I'm going to use this feature. The first thing I'm going to do is enable this option called custom object composition on the bottom left here. And now that adds a new dimension to the timeline over here. So what I can do is I can move the playhead, and I'm going to put it over here where the Jeep is in this position. And then I'm going to click on the plus button, and this creates a new target box or a focus box. I'm going to put this focus box basically on the Jeep and the shadow that it's casting. And you don't have to be super precise, but this is basically what I'm doing. You'll now notice that we have a little icon with a dot in it. Then I'm going to move the playhead over here so that the Jeep is in this location, and I'll click on this plus button and repeat this process of putting the focus box around the Jeep, and then I'll do it one more time when the Jeep is over there, and I will click the plus button and highlight the Jeep. All right, so now if you click on these icons here, you'll see the selection you made from your timeline. And all you need to do is click on continue to proceed. All right, so that took about 33 seconds to process. And if you zoom in, you could see now what we have. We have this static image, this still image, and we have the Jeep that has been masked together. So you have this kind of action sequence. And now again, this wasn't a big challenge because the drone was static. It wasn't panning around. It was actually pretty easy to do. And so just like before, we have these other options in terms of like perspective. You can select, I recommend going through each one and finding the one that best suits kind of the purposes of the image. I actually kind of like this one here. This looks like it gives me a good result. And just like before, what you can do is you can drag up and down to correct perspective. So this is right around here. This looks fine. The Jeep looks properly vertical throughout the image. And then I'm going to click on stitch, and this is going to bring us to the cropping. So with cropping here, I'm going to go ahead and make this kind of a wide angle crop, putting the road more or less on the lower third of the image. And then with that done, I'm going to click on crop. That shows us the image, and then I'll click on save. And now we have our image here. And again, this is just cool. Like, I think this is cool. I'll admit that this is not like something that I think you'll be using a ton. It's kind of a niche thing that if you have specific variables that are met in your video and you want to create this kind of unique composition showing an action sequence, this extension actually makes it quite easy to do. So here's the result. And of course, just like before, you can go ahead. Again, I'll just use Accent AI here because it just does a really nice job. And I mentioned before, there was no sky detected, so Sky Enhancer is grayed out, and that makes sense. So there you go. That is another example of how you can use the Panorama Stitching Extension. First one was with a few images. Second one was with a video, of a static video of my Jeep driving through the frame. Now let's try something a little bit more complicated. It's the same concept of creating an action scene, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to use a video clip. Here it is, where the camera pans with the bicyclist. So same as before, take the video and drag it onto the Panorama Stitching Extension and then click on Start. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to adjust the start and end frame bumpers. So I'm going to click on the start frame bumper here, and I'm going to move it out, and I'll start the clip right around here. And then I'm going to take the end frame bumper, and I'm going to end it kind of where the bicyclist is exiting the frame. So around there. So now this is my working timeline that I can select my options. And again, you want to make sure that custom object composition is selected. So move the playhead, find the first area that you want to select, click on plus, and make the selection around the subject that you want to mask. So again, here I'm making the entire bicyclist my selection. I'm going to move the playhead. I'll go here, click again. Last time I did 3 selections of my Jeep. This time I'm going to do 4. There's that. Then I'll move it across and I'm going to get it just where the sun is kind of peeking through the bicyclist. Same thing. Just do that. And then one more, like right around there. So one more selection. And there we go. So now we have our 4 selections. Again, you can click on these dots to refine any of the selections you make, and then click on continue when you're ready. So here we go. This took about 9 seconds, a lot faster. This is a compressed video though, so I suspect that has something to do with it. And again, I mentioned how this is a beta and they're still working on the performance. So you can see here, we don't have like the best results. Like here, this is ghosted out. Same thing over here. And then same thing over here. So it's not perfect, but one of the things I do want to highlight, we now have this seamless pano. Like it's actually like the video was panning across and we now have one image of the scene and it looks quite seamless. If we zoom in, you know, it's kind of, unless you're scrutinizing, I really don't know if I see any seams. What I will do though is I'll kind of start playing around with the different compositions here or different aspect ratios. And let's see. I think this over here, cylindrical, is the best. And then you can, again, go ahead and adjust this. You can kind of have fun in this kind of a photo, but I'll keep it straight like that. And I'll click on stitch. Now, one of the things I can do is I can just eliminate this side because that's just not working for me. And so I can just crop in and either crop this guy out completely, which is what I'll probably do. So I have these 3, and then I'm going to use some sort of healing to fix or remove this phantom tire. But all in all, like this is actually a pretty cool, it's just cool. Like, I don't know, it's kind of fun to use. And so now if we click on crop, there's our image, same person. And it does a pretty good job. Again, I'm expecting it to get even better as they continue developing, still working on the beta. But the biggest culprit for me, other than the fact that I had to crop in tighter, is I'll have to do something about this ghost, which it doesn't seem like it'd be very hard to fix. I'll go ahead and click save. And then there is the photo. So again, just to me, that's just kind of fun. It's not something I see myself using a lot, but it's just cool functionality. Now, here's where I want to show you the final thing that I think a lot of people will use. Like, I think this is probably the best application other than stitching images. So here I have this album called Panel from Video. And all I did was I went out to my backyard with my iPhone and I recorded my backyard. Like one side of my backyard, I was just panning from left to right. And then I imported the image here into Luminar Neo. And all I'm going to do is drag it just like before. And I'll click on start. So now I don't actually want to like select any object, any custom object. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to disable this. What I want to do is I want to create a still image of this actual panning video that I took. Because think about it. How many times, seriously, how many times have you gone on vacation, you know, you're touring around somewhere, you take your phone out, you put it in the video mode and you just record a panning video like that? I mean, I've done that so many times. So many people do that. Wouldn't it be cool if you can take that video and create a still image out of it? Like that to me is kind of cool. So here, the way that this works is you can use the start and end framed bumpers to define the left and the right side of the pano. So I'm going to take the bumper here and I'm going to bring it out, and I want the pano to start around there and I want it to end around here. So this is the active timeline. Again, custom object composition is disabled. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on continue. So that took 7 seconds. And look what we have here. We now have a still image of a panning video. And again, we can go ahead and choose the best aspect ratio here, or the best perspective rather, and we can fix and ensure that the trees are straight. We can go ahead and rotate afterwards, but for now, I'm just making sure that the tree trunk over here is straight. And so that's looking good. Again, I don't see any seams or anything over here. It looks really good. And this was with an iPhone 14 Pro Max with the main lens, and it was hitting against the large sensor within the camera. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on Stitch. And here's where I can rotate if I want to and adjust the composition. So I'll just go ahead here. It looks like I probably should have started a little bit, the opening frame, maybe a little bit further towards the beginning so I could give myself a bit more space, but that's fine. This is just basically to illustrate the functionality. I'll go ahead and click crop and then click save. And now I have this like still image. To me, that's just one of the coolest features of this Panorama Stitching Extension. This is what I think, next to actually stitching images, this will probably be the most used function for people who just take a lot of panning videos and they want to create, a single pano image. Because imagine if you're out and it's like a beautiful village in front of you and you just pan across and you create a video, but then you forgot to take a photo. Now you can create a photo out of it. So I think that's super cool. All right, so that's new Panorama Stitching Extension in Luminar Neo. Again, I've got to, tip my hat to the people there at Skylum for trying to think outside of the box and give users functionality that they may not have expected. To me, that's the best thing that you can do as a developer. Again, I don't use Capture One, I don't use PT GUI, I don't use pretty much any other app other than Adobe Lightroom. So that's what I compare this kind of functionality to. So if there are other apps that may have that functionality, that's cool. But from my perspective, I use Lightroom, and seeing this new functionality, this new way of kind of approaching my photos and videos, I think that's awesome. And so again, if you want to get Luminar Neo, or if you need to upgrade and you want to get the Panorama Stitching Extension, just click on this link here. And don't forget, all you need to do is add whichever plan you want. And on checkout, what you'll want to do is click on the enter promotional code link here and type in the code Brian15 and click apply. That will instantly take off 15% off your order. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful as always. If you did enjoy the video, please click the thumbs up button and definitely subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos. Thanks a lot, everyone.